FedSmart podcast. We're back. We've got some great information. Every single person that listens today is going to get a lot of value out of what we have for you. Keep in mind that what we're doing at FedSmart, because we're getting so many great questions, Stephen, written into our website, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page. If you guys have questions, send them to us. We try to get them answered on there, and then we also will answer them on our podcast for the masses. And so every other episode, we do a Q&A session where we answer your questions, or about every other episode, because sometimes we have to put in some pertinent information and timely information. But every couple episodes, we do a Q&A. So today, we're not doing a Q&A. That's the next one. So send us any questions that you might have, and we'll try to answer them in the next Q&A. We answer our 4 or 5 top questions every Q&A podcast. That's next one. Today, we're going to be talking about retirement timelines, different timelines to expect with your different benefits and your retirement overall. This is going to be some really good, valuable information to help you have healthy expectations of average times. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, Stephen, just like we put on Facebook recently that you'll get your annual leave payout in a certain
That
time,
did
which
not
we'll
go
talk
over
about.
well.
Yeah, the IRS this year, because so many people separated from the IRS and so many great HR benefits are not there. HR officers, specialists,
Yes.
yeah, they're not there anymore. IRS got hit with long timelines. And so we'll talk about some exceptions here in a second. But first, I want to encourage you with the first timeline, which is, when should you start preparing for retirement? I want to encourage you. The answer is yesterday. ASAP. It doesn't matter what age you are. If you're just hired and you're 25, start preparing for retirement. Start putting in your TSP. Start looking at when you're eligible. Start understanding your retirement. Don't worry if you're in your 50s and 60s or older and you haven't really started and you're like, it's too late to start, I'm behind the 8 ball. No, you can start yesterday. Start ASAP. Watch more of our podcasts. Better yet, get in our federalretirementcourse.com, a free course, over 12 hours of everything you need to prepare for retirement. Again, whether you're 25, a year from retirement, or already retired, there's so much great information. So the first timeline to know about is to start preparing for retirement is yesterday. Start today. Please, please, please. If the sooner you start, the more likely you're going to have a comfortable and successful retirement and be more prepared. The sooner you start, the more you're setting yourself up for success. So start yesterday.
There's a
Stephen,
lot to know about early in your career too that can set you up for success, especially when it comes to like TSP allocations and contributions. That is priceless to
Begley,
know
and
and go through. Fegley, oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot to know even when you're first starting that it will pay dividends way down the road if you start soon.
right. The eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. When you get in our federal retirement course, you'll see a module that talks about TSP investing concepts while employed. And it talks about if you started in your 20s at, a couple hundred a month compared to starting at your 50s, a couple hundred a month into your TSP, the massive difference. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially more, in your TSP by starting earlier. Even if you can't do a couple hundred, you just put in what you can. The earlier you start, the more likely to have a healthier balance when you retire. I just talked to somebody this week, Stephen, that had 7 figures and never made a super high salary, but because he started when he was first hired at 19 and he's now 62, early 60s, I don't remember exactly, but he contributed since he was 19. He has over $1 million in his TSP by simply consistently putting in since he was 19. So the first timeline is start yesterday. We can't reiterate that enough. Stephen, the next time, I keep calling you Steven on these podcasts. I guess that's your new name, Steven. Stephen.
Don't let that stick.
Yeah, that one's not a good
That's not
one.
a good one.
That's, when we're friends and old one day and I have dentures, it might just come out that way but for
Well,
now,
that's understandable, but that's
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Right now,
nowhere even close.
inexcusable. I just get excited about the next timeline, which is tell us when people should put in their retirement paperwork when they're thinking about retirement. How far out should they put in that paperwork?
So that's going to be a little bit more agency specific and not like black and white. However, uh, You want to at least be 60 days out. That's still kind of pretty close. Really, a good rule of thumb might be 90 to 120, all the way up to probably 180. If you look on OPM's website, they say at least 60 days, but there's a lot of stuff HR is prepping and doing all that. You probably don't want to put them under the gun that much. So maybe around 90 to 100 days is usually a good amount. You can also check with HR, when if you want to submit super early, sometimes they won't accept them if you're submitting too early. So you can always double check, but rule of thumb probably around that 90, 120 day mark.
Yeah, exactly. Great rule of thumb, something to shoot for, but there's always exceptions. Your HR department, as Steven said, will communicate with you when you should put that out. But OPM's recommendation is 60 to 90 days out from your retirement date. To be clear, if you're eligible for retirement, you can apply tomorrow if you want, but it's going to take a while to be processed, and there might be some errors that they have to come back or whatever. I mean, you could technically separate as soon as you want once you're eligible, but knowing ahead, if you can put your paperwork in 60 to 90 days out, HR will scrub it and go through it and send back, we miss this, we need this, send in a marriage certificate, send in a decree of divorce, send in this and help you get
Military
prepared.
buyback stuff, a lot of that
Yeah,
stuff you
all
need
of
to
that.
you need to get it all together.
Yep. So 60 to 90 days out. And I'll take this one, Steven. So I'll get the nasty emails. But when
Good
you
thing.
separate, you usually will get your annual leave on average within 30 business days of your separation date. That comes from your HR department. So usually when your HR puts in and sends over your file to OPM and releases it, that triggers as well to get your annual leave payout to happen, your lump sum. If you have unused annual leave, that comes in a lump sum payment, and that will come out or hit your account, I should say. Some agencies, it's even on your last paycheck, but you'll get it maybe as a separate payment in up to 30 business days, which key there is business days. So up to 6 weeks. Now, again, there's always exceptions. Like this past year with in 2025, as of the recording of this podcast, with so many people taking the deferred resignation and VSIPs and also kind of being forced out, especially in IRS. I mean, that agency was hit the hardest, I would say. Right now, and we're talking to people that retired in September, the end of September, and here it is in January, and they still haven't got their annual leave payout yet. And they're also getting communication from OPM, they haven't, or excuse me, HR, that they haven't even submitted the file to OPM just yet. Now, I do have other people from IRS as well that separated the end of September and they saw their annual leave in like November, December. So again, there's exceptions. We're not saying guaranteed you'll have it within 30 days, but that's kind of what to expect with a healthy timeline. And a lot of our other agencies, not all of them, but a lot of others, a majority of them, Stephen, got it on their last paycheck or within 6 weeks, even with a lot more people retiring. So your annual leave, expect that lump sum payout I would say, in up to 2 months. That's a healthy expectation of when you're going to get that lump sum of annual leave. Now, Stephen, tell them the interim period, the timeline typically of the interim period and what we can expect there.
So again, rule of thumb, this is not exact, but like Jesse said, in a healthy timeline and what we have seen in the past and kind of an average of what we're seeing, within 60 days, you should be seeing an interim payment. That's going to be anywhere between 50 and 80% of what your final pension is going to be. The only thing that would hold on that's federal taxes. We get asked all the time, am I still covered under health benefits? It's not deducted. Yes. You are. And then once they finalize your pension, which we'll get into that timeline here in a second, they'll credit you back everything they owe you, minus the health benefits you should have been paying. But what we have been seeing is right around that 60-day mark on average for your interim payments to start.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So the pension is supposed to hit the first day of the month after you separate. So if you go the end of September, your interim payment is supposed to hit October 1st. Expect it maybe November 1st, maybe December 1st at the latest, like Steven is saying, under normal circumstances. Again, a lot of our IRS clients that are retiring and IRS following, some of you still haven't heard, some of you have,
A lot
but
of them
under,
started hearing this week. I'm starting
yeah,
to notice. So hopefully that's
right.
starting to get processed for everybody.
So hopefully that'll hit February 1st. And to encourage you, any missed payments that you were due, you will get back paid once they finalize your paperwork, which we're going to talk about now. So if they miss any payments, don't worry. If you retired the end of September, it was supposed to hit October 1. And so you missed October 1, November 1, December 1, and now January 1. Those four payments that were missed will be back paid when they finalize your payments, finalize your retirement, minus the health insurance premium that should have come out, like Steven said. So don't worry, even if you don't get it, you will eventually get it. I know it's frustrating and it's kind of annoying, but it is what it is as we're going through it. And then after maybe the next timeline to know is the finalization of your retirement. Under normal circumstances, it's a 3 to 6 month timeline that we see them finalizing it. 3 to 9 months really, but a good average, we see 3 to 6 months to get your retirement finalized. And what we see is if you oftentimes, not always, but if you had a simpler work history, like if you worked at the same agency for years, you don't have a divorce, those type of things, pretty simple file, they're going to get through it quicker. Because what they do, Stephen, they're actually verifying every SF50 notice of personnel action, when you got pay raises, when you relocated, when you switched agencies, when you got divorced, when you made a change, all those type of things they're verifying to make sure that they're paying you correctly. For example, I just talked to a doctor, Stephen. She, is at a 1/3. She works part-time and all her calculations are showing full-time. And then when she retires, she's got to go back and they got to go back and look at her SF50s out of how many hours that she could have worked, how many did she work, and adjust the computation. So those can take a little bit of time. That's why it takes 3 to 6 months to finalize it. And if you separated before you were 62 and you're counting on a supplement, when you're in the interim period, before they finalize your retirement, they're not going to give you your supplement yet. You're going to get your interim payment, like Steven said, which is a portion of your pension, but you're not going to get that interim payment yet. And then when they
The
finalize
supplement yet.
what did
Yeah.
I say?
Interim payment. You'll
Yeah.
get the
Okay.
interim payment when you get the interim payment.
Yeah,
You just
so
won't get
now
the
I'm making
supplement.
it even more clear as mud by misspeaking there. So you'll get your interim payment, but you won't get your supplement when you're in the interim payment status. Then when they finalize your retirement, you'll get that missed supplement payments back. So any again difference in your pension minus your health insurance, any missed pension payments, taking time to finalize that. And then now any missed supplement payments will also be back paid for you as well when they finalize that. So that's why that unused annual leave that usually comes in decently quick can kind of help bridge that gap maybe when you're in that unused or interim status. That unused annual leave can maybe be helpful, maybe have some savings, or you could potentially touch the TSP because, Stephen, how quickly after somebody separates does the TSP usually know that they're separated and allow them to take a withdrawal?
So this is going to be based off your age. One of the big advantages to the TSP is if you're retiring the year you're turning 55 or over, you have access to that without a 10% tax penalty that IRAs have. And usually within 30 days, the TSP will recognize that you're in separated status and you'll have access to your funds. If you're working and you're 59 and a half and then retire after 59 and a half, you shouldn't have to wait at all because you have reached the age to where you can take an in-service withdrawal. And so when you retire, you shouldn't have any wait at all to be able to access it. But usually within 30 days of your separation date, you'll be in separated status and you'll have access to your TSP.
Yep, exactly. I noticed last year that on the TSP website they changed the verbiage and said it can take up to 60 days for us to show you as separated. But I don't think, Stephen, in
I
recent
never saw
years,
that. Yeah, no.
yeah, well, and I don't think it's ever taken anybody that I've worked with and did a retirement counseling session with ever taken longer than a couple weeks.
Yeah, usually
Even
2 weeks is kind of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Even with recently, with a lot of people waiting to hear about pensions and things like that. And to be clear, it's after your separation date. So whatever your separation date is, like Steven said, we're up to 60 days now is what TSP said. They used to say up to 30 days, But we're seeing it pretty consistently after your separation date, usually about 2 to 3 weeks, like Steven said. I've worked with this past week. A lot of people were setting up withdrawals on their TSP website. I'm telling them how to do it, and they retired the end of the year, Steven, and they're already showing as separated here about middle January. So as of the recording of this call, so it took about 2 weeks for them to show as separated. Then when you create a withdrawal, if you're doing a rollover and you're going to another IRA or Roth IRA, that can take a week to 3 weeks to see the rollover actually be sent and hit your new account. But good news, your lump sum withdrawals, another timeline to know if you start systematic payments, but most importantly, if you need a lump sum withdrawal, like to help get you through that interim period, or you want to take a lump sum and go on that vacation, after they show you as separated, if you're under 59 and a half, and you create a withdrawal to your bank account, that's going to take usually 2 to 3 days to hit your bank. It's 2 to 3 business days. But here's a timeline everybody should know about. If you don't have your bank account added as a financial institution in TSP, go in there and do that today. Because if it's not in there and you add a bank account to send an ACH withdrawal, it's called, or a lump sum withdrawal, you now have to wait 7 business days or 7 days, not business days, 7 days to request a withdrawal to that bank account for security purposes. So what I mean by that is if I need a withdrawal and my bank account is not in there, Stephen, I have to go in there and add the bank account. Then it has to be in there for a week, 7 days, before I can actually request funds to go there for security purposes. So what you can do is you can proactively go in there, add your bank account now, so that in retirement, if you're in the interim status, an emergency pops up. Just talked to a guy this week that had, of course, Murphy's Law. He's in the interim status, hasn't seen his annual leave yet, needs about $15,000. And quickly, because of an emergency, well, thank goodness he had his bank account already in there, thanks to our counseling. And he was able to go in there and boom, have it come to his account, and it'll hit in 2 to 3 days instead of having to wait about a week and a half, because you have to wait a week to request those funds go to your bank, and then 3 to 4 days beyond that. So it ends up being a week and a half instead of just a couple day timeline. So that's a nice little tip to help you guys out. Have those financial institutions added into your account before. Now, here's a timeline that everybody should know. When you communicate with OPM in retirement, if you have an issue and you need to write them to cancel your FEGLI or to change your address and all these types of things, a lot of that can be done on the OPM services website. Some of them you have to mail, and the timeline after is quite frustrating. It's months. It takes them months to make changes. So make changes to anything that you can or need to make changes prior to separating. One other timeline to know about is after you retire, the ability to go back in and look at your personnel file and your emails and work emails, the ability to do that is now never, as they say on Sandlot. So you cannot, when you are in separated status on your retirement date, you cannot go back in and look at your, personnel file, your Employee Express, all the different softwares that the different agencies use. You're now locked out. Your work email, you no longer can get in. You can't go back in and look at your SF50s. You can't go back in and find that email of that recipe that Steven sent you. That's a fantastic meatball sandwich. Can't have that. So forward that. Download all your emails, download all your SF50s, get yourself a memory stick or have a nice big hard drive and download all your data there. Because if they come back when you're in interim status, Stephen, and they say, oh, it looks like you didn't actually work during these times, you can't say, well, no, I did. Let me go find my SF50s and get back in your personnel file. Can't do it. So you want to have all that information downloaded ahead of time. So those are a lot of important timelines. Stephen, we'll put it out there. If you guys have any questions on any other timelines.
Filing for Social Security is another hot one too.
Yeah.
How soon you should file for that. Up to 4 months before you want your benefit to start, you can file for your Social Security. We've been seeing some delays there as well, of course. Everything's kind of delayed right now.
Up to being the key word. And we're seeing some delays, but now that you can apply online, a lot of times, especially if you apply a couple months out, yeah, like Steven said, they might get back to you. And in very rare occasions, like we're seeing maybe 3 to 4% of the time, they will have you go into the Social Security office just to verify maybe if there had been fraud in the past with your Social Security, or they have some missed earnings and they need to go through some earnings with you. They might schedule a time for you to go down to your local Social Security office, but probably 97% of the time you're able to do it right online. And usually they might come back with one or two things, but we're seeing if you do it a couple months ahead of time, to Steven's point, you're able to overcome the one or two little questions they have and get it going when you actually want it to go. And if you're applying right now to have it start ASAP, a good portion of the time, 70 to 80% of the time, they're able to get it going. But about a third of the time, it can take a little bit longer to get it set up, and then they'll back pay you what they should have been doing. So try to do it 3 to 4 months out. And that way they can make sure that they clarify everything they need clarified so that your Social Security will actually start on the day that you want. And then Medicare, you can apply for Medicare Part B up to 3 months prior to your 65th birthday and up to 7 months after your 65th birthday. So you basically want to apply, though, within a 7 month window, and actually, let me say that better: 3 months before you turn 65 and 3 months after. So it's the 3 months before, the month of your 65th birthday, and then 3 months after. So it's actually a 7 month window, if that makes sense, that you can apply. That's why I said 7 months earlier, to apply for that Medicare when you're separated. If you're still working, you can get Medicare Part A, which you've already paid for over your career, and you can wait for Part B until you actually separate. And then you have that 7 month window I was talking about that you can enroll in Part B. So those are the timelines for Medicare. And that is, again, when you're turning 65, not 62. Social Security is 62, Medicare is 65. So I think that went through pretty much all of the major timelines we get asked about the most. As always, we always miss one or two. So if there's a timeline we missed, throw it in our comments or our questions on most of our podcasts. You can't comment, but you can go to our Facebook page and you can comment there. You can send us a message, or you can go to fedsmartretirement.com. If you're like, man, Jesse, you just threw out so much information, this sounds so overwhelming, you can always get a free counseling session with one of us at FedSmart Retirement, and you can go to fedsmartretirement.com. You can also submit your questions at fedsmartpodcast.com, and then find us on all the different social medias, the Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those. And if you really want to get serious about your retirement, if that's a resolution or a goal of yours in 2026, go to federalretirementcourse.com and sign up for free. Steven and I want to be a resource for you guys to help get you educated, to help prepare you for retirement. So any way that we can do that, hit us up on any of those platforms, and we'll do our best to do that. We've got a Q&A session coming up in about 2 weeks. So we've got a lot of good questions, but we need some more. Give us some questions. We want to get your questions answered. You guys have a fantastic 2026. For those of you who are retiring this year or already retired, we're excited for you. We're here to help you. And for those of you who want to retire yesterday, but you have a few years to go, hit us up any way that we can help you out. We appreciate you on FedSmart. We'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one.
FedSmart Podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice or tax advice. FedSmart Podcast is not affiliated with any government agency or OPM. Jesse Black and Steven Puckett offer advisory services through Integrity Wealth. Integrity Wealth and FedSmart are not affiliated. If you'd like an appointment, please go to fedsmartretirement.com and schedule a free one-on-one appointment. Thank you.